right, welcome back to the Massive Impact Podcast, episode 002, 10 ways that we see manufacturing companies get stuck. In my 20 plus year career, every factory, every plant, every company that I've gone into, I'm talking $3 million to $10 million, $30 million, 40, 50 million, up to 300 million, and approaching $1 billion. Every company that we go into is leaving between 6 and 8 figures of additional profit on the table. And I'm here to show you how to extract that additional profit. Today, we're going to uncover 10 things that we see manufacturing companies get stuck on. So number one is when everything is a priority. You see this because when this occurs, the team gets spread thin and literally nothing gets accomplished. So to counter that, just prioritize. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but pick something. But when everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. Number two, a segue into nothing is a priority. You see this when everyone's fine to just keep up with the status quo. They're fine with the current conditions, the old, if it's not broken, don't fix it mentality. Leads to nothing is a priority. So again, to counter this, pick a problem, pick a list of problems, write them down, maybe even hold a vote with your team and prioritize, and then start attacking one thing at a time. Number three, the third way that I see manufacturing companies getting stuck is when everything is reactionary. When this is happening, it's just very difficult to get out of that cycle. And it is a cycle. You see that every problem that pops up is almost like whack-a-mole. You're putting out fires, and it's very difficult to get out of this. Every problem gets magnified, and you have to wear several hats, and you have to chase down the current problem. So to counter this, unfortunately, you have to take a step back, and you have to assess what's current state, what is on fire, and what keeps popping up as a problem. And then once again, prioritize. List out every problem that you're experiencing, but you have to start chipping away at these problems and assign ownership of tasks. The fourth problem that I see manufacturing companies getting stuck on is analysis paralysis. This is when you have a ton of data, and companies often do have lots of data, and they want to slice it and dice it and look at it 100 different ways, maybe not literally, but a dozen ways. But they don't know how to put the data to use. They're looking for trends, and they're looking for what I call the silver bullet. But rarely there is ever a silver bullet. So the way to get away from the analysis paralysis is, again, take a step back and really capture what's important to your business. What metrics drive your business forward? Is it cost? Is it on-time delivery? Pick the problem. And again, it goes back to prioritizing. But data is great. Without massive action, there's no massive results. The fifth way that I see companies, manufacturing companies, getting stuck is there's no understanding of the capacity in their process. What I mean by this is there's no baseline of performance, so they don't even know where they are. They haven't drawn a line in the sand to measure, okay, this is current state performance. And then equally important, they have no idea maybe what the theoretical maximum capacity of their process or their line or their company is. So if you don't understand what your baseline performance is, you don't know what your cost per unit is today, you don't know what the theoretical maximum throughput or output could be of your process or capacity, then you don't know what that delta is. You don't know what to go after. So therefore, companies will stay in a rut, and they'll stay exactly where they are because they don't know what's on the other side. Again, to counter this, capture where you are today. How many units are you making? How many pieces per hour? How many pieces per man hour or labor hour are you investing into a unit? And that'll give you some very good back of the napkin math. And then perform time studies on your line. Understand, okay, what truly could the process be? What's the bottleneck? What could we expect? How many widgets per hour could we expect? And then go achieve that. Go after that bottleneck. Go chip away at that bottleneck. The sixth way that I see companies getting stuck is they just don't know what they don't know. And what I mean by that is they go to try to solve something that maybe they're not expert at. Every company that we work with, they are experts at the product. They're experts at designing it, creating it, but maybe they're not the expert at changing the process. Maybe they're not the expert at change management. So if you're a company that isn't really proficient with change management or, improving a process rapidly, then look for outside help or look to a different resource. Call on somebody that is expert at that. We see this time and time again. The seventh way that companies get stuck is they don't know, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, but they don't know what their current cost is at a per unit basis. So they're measuring the wrong things. They're measuring, what's our head count? How many people do we have on staff today? With no look at really what the throughput is relative to that labor cost. Likewise, if they're not boiling it down to a per unit cost basis, maybe they're measuring overtime. And those are great indicators. But if you don't know what your cost at a per unit cost basis is, then you're probably measuring the wrong indicators if you're trying to reduce your cost. Sometimes you can add labor to a line and actually reduce the cost per unit. So it's relative to how many pieces are you getting and how many labor hours did you invest. The eighth way that we see companies really get stuck in a rut is either they have the wrong metrics or they have no metrics. This ties in with the seventh problem in that companies are sometimes too focused on the wrong thing. So obviously, if you have the wrong metrics, you're not going to steer towards what great looks like. And if you have no metrics, well, no one's keeping count. No one knows what a good day is. Conversely, sometimes people have or companies have way too many metrics and it's confusing and it's just overload, data overload. So if you're in that situation, then yeah, it's too complex. So you really need to hone in on, measure what you treasure. The ninth way that I see companies getting stuck is lack of accountability. I know accountability is kind of a bad word sometimes, but we see companies having the right initiatives in place, the right plan, but because the owners of the tasks can just slide those tasks back again and again and again, and companies allow that to happen, nothing really gets achieved timely. Now, there may be valid reasons that it gets slid, but put the correct date down in the first place and support that task owner to getting it done. That's what I mean by accountability. Last but not least, no urgency. So you can have the greatest plans, the greatest vision in the world for improvement, but if you have no urgency, it simply doesn't matter. And on a personal note, when I hire people, this is the number one trait that I look for is how urgent are they? Because if you're urgent, I feel like I can train just about everything else, assuming you have a technical background, you're an engineer. But if you're urgent, then all the rest of these problems can be dealt with. That's all we have for today, guys. Check out our link below, click subscribe, and follow us for the next podcast. See you next time.